The desert was not made of sand. It was made of ice. A cold wind moved across the endless white ground, carrying sharp crystals that cut like tiny knives. The sky was heavy, gray, and silent. Nothing lived here. Nothing dared to. But on this frozen land, a shape lay half buried under the snow. It was tall, strong once, and wrapped in broken royal armor. The armor was marked with strange signs, symbols of power, symbols of a kingdom. Yet now those signs were covered with blood and cracks. It was the alien queen, the mother of the king. She was no ordinary being. Her people once knelt before her, called her Mother of Worlds, feared her voice like thunder. But now she was weak. Her chest rose and fell with pain. Every breath felt like knives inside her. Her golden skin was pale from the cold. Her eyes, once bright with command, were closed. She had been betrayed. Her own people had left her here on this dead desert planet. The queen remembered the moment. The battle in the sky, the enemy fire, the desperate retreat. She remembered her son, the king, ordering the warriors to protect her. And then darkness. When she woke again, she was alone. Her ship broken, her body bleeding. Her soldiers gone, they had abandoned her. The desert stretched forever. No food, no warmth, no sound except the cruel wind. She knew she would die here, and her enemies would never even know where her bones lay. But fate is strange. Far above the icy world, another ship moved quietly. Small, human-built, not royal, not powerful. Inside, a lone human medic sat at his controls, scanning for life signs. His mission was not war. His mission was rescue. He searched forgotten battlefields, broken planets, places where soldiers had fallen. Sometimes he found bodies, sometimes survivors. When his screen lit up, he almost did not believe it. A signal. Weak, almost gone. But alive, impossible, he whispered. A life form on this frozen desert? He checked again. Yes, the signal was real. He pulled the ship lower, fighting the storm until the desert stretched before him. He set the ship down, the engines hissing against the ice. The ramp opened and a wave of cold air rushed inside, burning his lungs. He wrapped his coat tighter and stepped out, his boots sinking in the snow. The medic's breath froze in front of his face as he moved toward the signal. Each step was heavy. The storm tried to push him back, but he pressed on. And then he saw her. At first, he thought it was a fallen statue, some broken monument left in the snow. But then he saw her chest move, shallow and weak. His heart jumped. Alive, he breathed. The human medic ran forward, kneeling beside her. He brushed the snow away from her face. His eyes widened. This was no ordinary survivor. This was an alien, tall, beautiful in a terrible way. Her skin shimmered faintly even in the storm. Her armor was marked with royal signs. Fear ran through him. He knew the stories. Her kind were rulers, warriors, conquerors. They were not friends of humanity. They were enemies. He looked down at her face, pale and broken. She looked nothing like the powerful queen of legends. She looked like a dying mother. For a moment, he hesitated. Should he save her? Or should he leave her to the ice? The queen opened her eyes only for a second. They were bright, golden like a fire hidden under the snow. She saw the human's face. Strange, small, weak compared to her kind. But there was something in his eyes she did not expect. Fear, yes, but also pity. Her lips moved. The words were soft, broken. He could not understand the alien tongue, but he understood the meaning. Help. The medic's chest tightened. His training whispered inside him. All life is worth saving. Enemy or friend. He slid his arm under her shoulders, lifting her heavy body with effort. Don't give up, he said, though he knew she could not understand his language. I won't leave you here. The storm howled louder, as if the desert itself was angry. The medic struggled back toward his ship, carrying the weight of the queen. Each step was harder. Ice stung his face. His arms ached. But he refused to stop. Behind them, the desert whispered like a grave. The queen's breath grew weaker, fading with every moment. Her head rested against his shoulder. The ship's lights finally appeared through the storm. The medic pushed himself harder, dragging her inside. The ramp closed, sealing out the cold. Warmth returned slowly. The medic laid her on a medical bed, scanning her injuries. His screen showed internal bleeding, broken ribs, frostbite. Her life was hanging by a thin thread. The medic looked at her, at the strange alien who could kill him with one command if she were strong. But she was not strong now. She was broken. She was dying. And he had a choice. His hands hovered over the medical tools. Save her or let her die. The storm outside roared, beating against the ship. Inside, the medic made his decision. His hands moved quickly, starting treatment. The Queen's breathing slowed, but steadied. She was alive. And in that frozen desert, something had begun. Something neither the Queen nor the medic could yet understand. The storm still raged outside, but inside the small human ship, silence ruled. The medic sat beside the alien Queen, watching the monitor's weak signals. Her heart was slowing, but it had not stopped. Not yet. He had seen many wounded soldiers in his life. Human soldiers. Some survived, some did not. But this was different. Never before had he touched an alien like her. Never before had he felt the strange weight of saving someone who was meant to be his enemy. The Queen's breathing rattled. Her golden eyes flickered open for a moment, then closed again. She did not speak, but her presence filled the cabin like a heavy shadow. The medic whispered to himself. "Who are you? Why are you here?" He knew the stories. The alien kings and queens were feared across the galaxy. They ruled with fire and steel. Entire colonies had fallen before their armies. And now one of them lay in his care, helpless as a child. The medic's hands shook as he prepared the treatment. His ship was small, his tools old. He had no great machines, no advanced healing pods. Only his skill, his training, and his stubborn will to keep people alive. He cleaned her wounds, sealing torn flesh with a humming tool. The alien skin resisted at first, harder than human flesh, but slowly it began to close. Her blood was strange, glowing faintly as if it carried light within it. It stuck to his gloves like gold dust. He tried not to stare. He tried not to think of what she truly was. Outside, thunder rolled across the frozen desert. The ship shook, but its shields held. Time passed slowly. The medic worked hour after hour until sweat covered his face despite the cold. At last, the Queen stirred. Her body trembled. Her lips parted and a voice came out, deep, broken, and strange. The medic froze. The words meant nothing to him, but her tone was sharp, commanding even in weakness. He raised his hands, showing he had no weapon. "I'm not your enemy," he said quietly. "I'm helping you." She frowned, her eyes narrowing. She did not understand his language, but she understood his actions. He had saved her from the ice. He had given her warmth. And she hated it. In her mind, shame burned hotter than her wounds. She a queen saved by a fragile human? Her people would laugh if they knew. They would call her weak. But shame was not enough to stop her. She tried to rise. The medic quickly pressed her back down. "Stop. You'll die if you move." His voice was firm, stronger than before. For a moment, her golden eyes met his brown ones. She saw no fear in him now, only determination. He was not like her soldiers. He was not like her enemies. He was simply human, and he would not let her die. Her strength failed again. She sank back onto the bed, exhausted. The medic exhaled. He knew she could kill him with one strike if she wanted. But she had not. Something inside him whispered that maybe, just maybe, she did not want to. He checked the monitor. Her pulse was stronger now. She was healing. But danger was far from over. The ship's alarm suddenly beeped. The medic turned to the screen. His heart dropped. 3 ships were entering the planet's orbit. Alien signatures. The same kind as the Queen. He swallowed hard. "They're looking for you," he muttered. His eyes flicked to her. She was half conscious, her eyes unfocused. She could not defend herself. He tapped the console, activating the stealth field. The ship's lights dimmed, the engines cooled, and the vessel blended with the frozen desert around it. Outside, the alien ship scanned the ground, beams of light cutting through the storm. The medic held his breath, every muscle tight. If they found him, it was over. They would not forgive a human holding their queen. Minutes felt like hours. The ships passed slowly overhead, searching, hunting. The Queen stirred again, whispering words he could not understand. The medic gently covered her mouth, afraid the sound might carry. At last, the enemy ships moved away, disappearing into the storm. The medic's body slumped with relief. They were safe. For now, he turned back to the Queen. Her eyes opened, watching him silently. For the first time, her gaze was not filled with hate or shame. It was filled with something else, something harder to name. The medic sat down, breathing heavily. "You don't know me," he said softly, more to himself than to her. "But I won't let you die, not here. Not like this." The Queen's eyelids fluttered. She did not reply. but her chest rose more strongly than before, her breath no longer so fragile. The medic leaned back, staring at the ceiling of his small ship. He wondered what he had done. He wondered if saving her was a mistake or a miracle. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, two enemies, one human, one alien, lay in silence, bound by a strange and fragile thread: survival. And deep in the desert sky, the Queen's people were still searching, unaware that their betrayed mother had found life again, because of a human hand. The ship was quiet, but it was not peaceful. Every sound carried weight: the hum of the medical machines, the slow rhythm of alien breathing, the crack of the storm outside. The medic sat in his chair, half asleep, but his eyes opened quickly when he heard movement. The Queen was awake. She tried to sit up, her golden skin shining faintly in the dim light. Pain made her body shake, but her spirit was fierce. Her eyes burned with fire as she looked around the small cabin. Cold walls, human design. She was in an enemy vessel, her gaze locked on the medic. A stranger, a fragile creature smaller and weaker than her kind. Yet he had touched her, treated her wounds. She remembered his hands lifting her from the snow, his strange voice whispering words she did not know. The medic stood slowly, his palms open, showing he held no weapon. His voice was calm, though his heart raced. "You're safe. You're alive, please. Don't move too fast." The Queen's eyes narrowed. She did not understand his words, but she understood his tone. Calm, careful, almost gentle. She hissed in her own language, sharp words filled with anger. The medic froze. He did not know what she said, but the meaning was clear. Enemy, untrustworthy, human. He shook his head, speaking again. "I saved you. Do you understand? I saved you." His voice cracked with desperation. He needed her to believe, at least a little. The Queen tilted her head. Weak as she was, her instincts studied him. His stance was not of a warrior. His hands were steady, not violent. His eyes were strange. They carried fear, yes, but also something else. Not hatred, not greed. Something she had not seen in many humans: compassion. Her body trembled again. Pain surged through her ribs, making her collapse back onto the bed. A groan escaped her lips, and for the first time the Queen hated her weakness. The medic rushed forward, catching her before she hit the edge. His arms wrapped around her carefully, supporting her weight. "Easy. Don't fight yourself," he murmured. Though he knew she couldn't understand, her breath was shallow. She turned her face slightly, so close to his that she could feel his warmth. She had never been this near to a human before. She smelled his sweat, his fear, his stubborn will to keep her alive. Her golden eyes met his brown ones. For a moment, the storm outside seemed to vanish. There was only silence, two enemies locked in a fragile meeting. She whispered something in her language. One word, soft. The medic could not understand, but the tone was different. Not sharp, not hateful. Almost like a question, he swallowed. "My name is Daniel," he said slowly, pointing to himself. "Daniel?" She stared, confused, then repeated a sound close to it. "Da, Neil." Her voice cracked, rough but steady. His heart skipped. She had spoken his name. Encouraged, he pointed at her. "You? Who are you?" She narrowed her eyes again, her pride refusing to bow. But finally her lips parted. Her voice was weak but firm. "Raelia," Daniel tried to say it back. "Raelia?" His tongue struggled. Her lips twitched, almost like a smile, though her eyes stayed cold. She corrected him slowly, repeating her name until his version was closer. For the first time, a bridge had been built. Two names, exchanged across the wall of silence. Daniel nodded. "Raelia," he said, this time more clearly. "Queen," her eyes sharpened. How did he know? Perhaps from the royal symbols on her armor. She did not confirm it, but neither did she deny. The moment was broken by the ship's console beeping again. A warning. Scanners showed faint signals sweeping across the desert. The enemy had returned. Daniel cursed under his breath. He rushed to the controls, activating the stealth field again. The ship dimmed, blending with the frozen storm. Raelia watched him, confusion flickering in her golden eyes. This human was not taking her to his leaders. He was not asking for ransom. Instead, he was hiding her from her own kind. Why? Daniel pressed buttons quickly, his jaw tight. The scanners passed again, closer this time. His heart pounded. If they found the ship, they would kill him instantly. Raelia studied his back as he worked. His fear was clear, but so was his determination. He was protecting her. She could not understand why, but the truth was sharp as ice. This fragile human had risked his life for her twice now. The scanners passed, moving away again. Daniel let out a long breath, his shoulders slumping. He turned back to her, his face pale with exhaustion. "We're safe. For now." She did not understand his words, but she understood the look in his eyes. Relief. Relief for himself. And for her, Raelia lay back against the bed, silent. Her pride battled inside her. She was a queen betrayed by her people, now alive because of a human's stubborn mercy. It burned her heart, yet something else flickered beneath the fire. Trust. Fragile, unwanted, but growing. Daniel sat across from her again, watching carefully. Neither spoke. Neither could. But in that silence, something louder than words had been born. For the first time, two enemies had looked into each other's eyes and seen more than hatred. They had seen life, and that, in the frozen desert, was the first contact. The storm had not ended. It screamed outside the ship like an angry spirit, shaking the thin walls with icy fists. Inside, the silence was heavier than the storm itself. Daniel sat at the controls, staring at the scanners. Blinking red dots moved across the screen. Alien patrols. They were close. Too close. Behind him, Raelia lay on the medical bed. Her eyes were half open, watching him carefully. She had regained a little strength, but her body was still broken. Even so, her mind was sharp, and her golden gaze followed every move Daniel made. She understood now. This human was not a soldier. He was not a spy. He was simply a healer. But why would he risk everything to protect her? Daniel checked the ship's power levels. His stealth field drained more energy every minute. If the patrols did not leave soon, the shields would collapse. Then both of them would be seen, he muttered under his breath. "Come on, move along." "Don't find us." Raelia tilted her head. She did not understand his words, but she understood his face. Worry, fear, yet determination. Her pride ached. A queen of worlds depending on a single fragile human. But her heart whispered a truth she could not ignore. Without him, she would already be dead. The scanners beeped louder. One patrol ship turned, heading straight toward Daniel's vessel. His chest tightened. He slammed his hand on the console, powering down even further. Lights inside the cabin dimmed until only the faint glow of the storm outside lit their faces. The patrol ship hovered above, sending beams of blue light down into the desert. The storm made their search harder, but the scanners were strong. Any mistake and Daniel's ship would be revealed. Daniel sat frozen, barely breathing. Raelia's eyes locked onto him. She saw the sweat on his forehead, the way his hands trembled but did not stop working the controls. Minutes dragged into forever. The patrol scanned, circled, then finally moved on, vanishing into the storm. Daniel exhaled sharply, falling back in his chair. That was too close. Raelia did not know the words, but she understood the tone. Relief. Survival. For a long moment, she simply stared at him. At last, she spoke. Her voice was low, sharp in her own tongue. The sound was strange to him, like music mixed with thunder. He frowned, shaking his head. "I don't understand," she tried again, slower. Still, he could not grasp the meaning. But her expression told him enough. She was asking something. Demanding, perhaps. Daniel thought for a moment, then pointed at himself. "Daniel." Then he pointed at her. "Raelia." She narrowed her eyes. Yes, he remembered. Good. But she was asking more than names. She tapped her chest, then gestured upward toward the sky. Her people. Her kingdom. Daniel hesitated. Then he shook his head slowly. "They left you." "They left you to die." His voice cracked with disbelief. "Why?" She did not understand the words, but she understood the tone. The sadness. The anger. Her golden eyes flickered with pain. She looked away. For the first time, Daniel saw it. Loneliness. Behind her fierce pride and sharp eyes, she was alone. Betrayed. Abandoned. The silence stretched heavy between them, but silence did not last long. The scanners beeped again. More ships. Not just patrols this time, warships, heavier, stronger. Daniel's stomach twisted. They weren't just searching. They were hunting. He cursed under his breath, checking the energy levels again. The stealth field was nearly empty. If he kept it on much longer, he would lose life support. Raelia sensed his fear. She forced herself to sit up, though pain tore through her ribs. She pointed at the scanners, then at herself, then at the door of the ship. Her message was clear: give me to them. Save yourself. Daniel's jaw clenched. No, I'm not giving you up. His voice was fierce, louder than he expected. Her golden eyes widened. She had not expected defiance. Humans were weak, afraid. Yet this one stood like iron even when death circled overhead. For a moment, neither moved. The storm rattled the ship, thunder booming like drums of war. Finally, Raelia sank back against the bed, exhausted. She could not fight him, not now. She closed her eyes, but her thoughts raced. Why would he risk himself for her? What did he gain? Daniel tightened his fists. He was just a medic, a healer. He had sworn long ago never to abandon the wounded, no matter who they were. And though she was alien, though she was feared across the stars, she was still alive, still someone worth saving. Outside, the warship swept across the desert, closer and closer. Shadows passed over the storm, dark shapes searching for one queen who refused to die. Inside, a human medic guarded her life with nothing but his courage, his silence, and his fragile hope. Neither of them knew how long the shields would last. Neither of them knew if tomorrow would come. But in that moment, in the heart of the frozen desert, two enemies sat together in the dark. Hunted by shadows that once called her queen, the storm finally began to fade. The desert outside was still cruel and cold, but the thunder grew quiet and the winds slowed. Inside the small human ship, time moved in a different rhythm, slow, heavy, uncertain. Daniel sat beside the bed, exhausted. His eyes burned from lack of sleep, but he did not dare rest. Every few minutes he checked the monitors, adjusted the medical tools, and made sure Raelia's breathing stayed steady. She had grown stronger. The bleeding had slowed. The glow in her strange golden blood was dimmer now, fading as her body healed. Her chest rose more evenly with every breath, but her eyes never rested. She watched him constantly. Every move he made, every button he pressed, every tool he picked up. She studied him like a predator studying prey, and yet she did not strike. Daniel finally broke the silence. His voice was quiet, tired. You should be dead, you know. If the storm hadn't hidden you, your people would have found you, and they weren't coming to rescue you. Raelia tilted her head. She did not understand his words, but she understood his tone. Calm, serious, sad. She touched her ribs, wincing at the pain. She looked down at the clean bandages, neatly wrapped by human hands. Her people would have left her, but this fragile creature had worked for hours to keep her alive. The thought stung her pride. Daniel sighed, rubbing his face. I don't know why I'm doing this. You're supposed to be the enemy, but when I saw you out there in the snow, you didn't look like a queen. You looked like someone who needed help. She frowned, hearing the word queen. So he had guessed. She did not confirm, but neither did she deny. The silence stretched again, heavy but not hostile. After some time, Daniel stood and opened a storage locker. He pulled out a metal container and pressed a button. Steam rose as warm food appeared inside, a simple human ration. He sat at the table, eating quietly. Raelia's eyes followed the movement. The smell reached her, strange but tempting. She had not eaten since the battle. Her body ached for strength. Daniel noticed her watching. He paused, then took another container from the locker. He set it near her bed. Food, he said, simply pointing at it. She stared. Her pride screamed at her to refuse. A queen should not take food from a human, but her hunger was stronger than her pride. Slowly, painfully, she reached out, took the container, and tasted the warm meal. Her golden eyes flickered with surprise. It was plain, simple, nothing like the feasts of her palace. Yet in that moment it was the most precious thing she had ever eaten. Daniel smiled faintly. Guess food works the same no matter where you come from. She looked at him sharply, but she did not stop eating. For a short time, the storm outside felt far away. Two enemies sat in silence, sharing food in a metal ship buried in snow. When she finished, Raelia spoke. Her words were soft, low in her own tongue. Daniel shook his head. I don't understand, she tapped her chest. Raelia. Then she pointed at him. He nodded. Daniel, she repeated his name, this time stronger, less broken. Daniel. The sound of her voice saying his name sent a strange shiver through him. For the first time, he felt she was not only a queen, not only an alien, but a person. He leaned forward, pointing at her chest. Raelia, her eyes narrowed. Then slowly she nodded. The bond between them grew word by word, gesture by gesture. Hours passed. Daniel cleaned her wounds again, carefully replacing bandages. She winced, but she did not fight him. Her eyes stayed on his face, watching how serious he was, how focused. At one point she whispered something in her language. Daniel looked at her, confused. She tried again, slower. He still could not understand, but her tone was softer this time. Almost thankful, he smiled gently. You're welcome, he whispered, though he knew she did not understand. The storm outside roared again for a moment, shaking the walls. Raelia's eyes flicked to the ceiling, alert, but Daniel did not move. He kept working, calm and steady. She studied him once more. A fragile human standing against the cold, against danger, against her people, all to keep her alive. And something inside her began to shift. Not trust. Not yet, but something close. She leaned back, closing her eyes. For the first time since the battle, she allowed herself to rest, not because she was safe, but because she believed Daniel would keep her safe. Daniel watched her for a long moment, then leaned back in his chair. His body ached, his eyes heavy, but a small spark of hope burned inside him. In the frozen desert, far from her throne and his home, a strange truth had begun to take root. A queen and a medic. An enemy and a healer. 2 lives bound by survival, and slowly, painfully, they were beginning to understand each other. The storm had ended. The desert lay quiet now, endless and white like a graveyard made of ice. Daniel's small ship sat hidden in the shadows of frozen ridges, its engines silent, its lights dim. Inside, Daniel checked the scanners again. His heart froze. A massive signal appeared in orbit, larger than any patrol before. Warships, not 3 or 5. An entire fleet, and at the center of them all, one ship bigger than the rest, glowing with golden marks of power. Raelia stirred. Even before she saw the screen, she knew. Her golden eyes darkened, her breath sharp. My son, she whispered in her own tongue. The alien king had come. Daniel did not understand her words, but he saw the change in her face. Strength mixed with sorrow, fear mixed with pride. The scanners beeped louder. Dozens of alien dropships descended toward the desert, soldiers, hundreds of them. The frozen land shook as their ships touched down, surrounding the area. Daniel's chest tightened. We're trapped, he whispered. His hands hovered over the controls. Running was useless. Fighting was impossible. Raelia pushed herself up, despite the pain in her ribs. Her face was pale, but her eyes burned bright. She pointed at the scanner, then at herself. Daniel shook his head. No, I'm not giving you to them. Her gaze hardened. She spoke sharply, repeating herself. The meaning was clear. I must go. He is my son. He is king. Daniel stood, fist clenched. They'll kill me the moment they see I was with you. His voice trembled, not with fear, but with defiance. I don't care if he's your son. I won't let you walk out there and die. Not after I saved you. Raelia stared at him. For the first time, silence fell heavy between them. Not because of language, but because she did not know what to say. The ground shook again. Outside, the dropships opened. Armored alien soldiers marched across the ice, forming circles of steel around Daniel's hidden vessel. Weapons glowed with cold light. At the center of the army stood the king, tall, powerful, his armor black and gold, his crown sharp like the frozen desert itself. His eyes scanned the horizon, burning with fury. He raised his voice deep and commanding, carrying across the storm. Mother. The word echoed like thunder. Inside the ship, Raelia's heart clenched. Her son, her blood. He thought she was dead. Now he had returned to claim her body, or to punish her betrayers. Daniel stepped closer to her bed. His hands trembled, but his voice was firm. If you go out there, they'll take you. They'll use you. Or they'll kill me. You can't. She raised her hand, silencing him. Her golden eyes pierced into his. For a long moment, she simply looked at him. A fragile human standing between her and an army. She saw the fire in his heart, the same fire she once saw in her own son. Her lips parted. Slowly, painfully, she whispered in broken human words. Daniel, protect her. The sound made his chest tighten. She had never spoken his language before. Now she had. And the word she chose shook him to the core. The ship's scanners screamed again. The king's soldiers were advancing. They would find the vessel in seconds. Daniel grabbed his weapon, not to fight, but to stall. His whole body shook with adrenaline. He knew he would die if they entered. Still, he stood tall. The ramp shook as heavy footsteps landed outside. The sound of metal against metal echoed as soldiers surrounded the hatch. Then a voice thundered again. "Mother, show yourself!" Raelia stood. Weak, trembling, but tall. She pressed a hand to Daniel's shoulder, stopping him. Her eyes glowed with command again. "No," she said softly in her own tongue. "You will not die for me." Before he could argue, the ramp opened. Cold wind blasted inside. Light poured through the storm. And there he was, her son, the king. The soldiers aimed their weapons instantly at Daniel. Dozens of glowing barrels pointed at his chest. Daniel raised his weapon, hands shaking. His eyes locked on the king. But then, Raelia moved. With surprising strength, she stepped in front of Daniel, spreading her arms wide. Her voice rang out in her alien tongue, sharp and royal. "No one touches him." The soldiers froze. Even the king's eyes widened, silence fell. The storm seemed to hold its breath. Daniel's mouth opened in shock. She had protected him. The king stepped forward slowly, his eyes narrowing. His gaze flicked from his mother's weak but proud form to the fragile human standing behind her. His voice was low, dangerous. "Explain." Rahelia's golden eyes blazed with fire. Her words were fierce, echoing across the frozen land. "This human saved my life. Without him, you would have no queen. Without him, you would have no mother." The king's soldiers shifted uneasily, confused. The human trembled but did not lower his weapon, and in that frozen desert, a choice burned in the king's heart: kill the human or honor the bond his mother had declared. The desert was silent. Only the storm whispered across the frozen plains, and the sound of alien weapons hummed like angry stars. Daniel stood with his back to the wall of the ship, his weapon raised though his hands trembled. In front of him, Raelia, the alien queen, spread her arms wide, blocking the line of fire. Her golden eyes burned with command, and her voice had already shaken her soldiers. "No one touches him." The king's army froze. Dozens of alien soldiers trained to kill without question stood uncertain. None dared to move against the mother of their king. The alien king stepped forward. His armor gleamed black and gold, sharp edges catching the pale light. His eyes, golden like his mother's but harder, colder, locked on Daniel. A human, weak, fragile, yet alive, standing here, weapon raised, beside the queen. The king's jaw tightened. His voice thundered across the desert. "Mother, explain yourself." Raelia's chest rose with pain, but her voice was strong. "This human saved me. When I was left to die in the ice, he carried me. When my blood spilled, he healed me. Without him, I would not stand here now. Without him, I would already be a ghost in the snow." The king's eyes flicked to Daniel again. His soldiers shifted, restless, waiting for his command. Some wanted to kill. Some feared disobedience. The air was thick with tension. Daniel swallowed hard. He understood almost nothing of their language, but he understood the looks. Death was only one breath away. Raelia stepped closer to her son, swaying from weakness, but still regal. "You rule worlds," she said. But even kings forget mercy. This human remembered. The king's face darkened. He turned sharply, raising his voice to his soldiers. "Leave us." The army hesitated. No one moved. Then slowly, as if the storm itself pushed them back, the soldiers stepped away, forming a wide circle but lowering their weapons. Silence returned. Only the king, the queen, and the medic remained at the heart of the frozen desert. Daniel's weapon lowered slightly. His breathing was fast, his chest tight, but he refused to run. He had made his choice the moment he carried her into his ship. If death came, he would face it. The king studied him. The human's body was shaking, yet his eyes held something familiar. Stubbornness. Defiance. The same fire the king once carried as a young warrior. At last, the king spoke, his voice low, dangerous. "Why?" Daniel blinked. He did not understand the words, but the question reached him in the silence. Why had he saved her? Why had he risked everything? He lowered his weapon fully, breathing heavily. "Because she needed me," he said softly. His words were simple, but his tone carried weight, because no one deserves to die alone. The king did not understand the language, but he heard the tone. He saw the truth in the medic's face. Raelia stepped forward again. Her voice was sharp as a blade. "This human is no enemy. He is a protector. Honor him, or you dishonor me." The king's eyes burned. He was torn between pride and duty, anger and respect. His people expected blood. His throne demanded strength. Yet here was his mother, alive only because of this fragile man. He raised his hand. Soldiers tensed. Daniel's heart pounded. The storm seemed to stop breathing. Then the king lowered his hand slowly. He stepped forward until he stood face to face with Daniel. Their eyes locked. Gold against brown. Fire against earth. The king lifted his weapon, then dropped it into the snow. The sound echoed like thunder. The soldiers gasped, but none spoke. The king bent one knee, lowering his head slightly, not in submission, but in respect. His voice rumbled across the desert. "Human, you saved my mother. For that, you have saved me. You are no enemy here." Daniel's chest tightened. He did not understand the words, but he understood the gesture. The king, the ruler of worlds, had bowed to him. Haelia's eyes softened. Pride and relief filled her heart. For the first time since her betrayal, she felt whole again. Not because of her army, not because of her throne, but because a single human had reminded her people of mercy. The king rose, his golden eyes fierce again. He looked to his soldiers. "This human lives. He is under my protection. Any who harm him will answer to me." The soldiers lowered their weapons fully. Fear and awe spread through their ranks. Daniel stood frozen, his weapon forgotten in his hands. He felt the storm wash over him, but inside, something warmer grew. He had not only saved one life, he had changed the fate of 2 worlds. Raelia touched his shoulder gently. Her voice, broken but soft, carried one human word she had learned. "Friend." Daniel blinked. His throat tightened. For a moment he had no words. He only nodded, his eyes wet from the cold, or maybe from something else. The king turned, raising his hand. The warships above roared, preparing to leave. The desert shook with power, but now it was no longer a graveyard. It was the place where enemies became allies. As the soldiers marched back, Daniel looked at Raelia one last time. She stood tall, though her body still trembled. She was no longer just a queen to him. She was someone who had trusted him when it mattered most. And though he did not know what future awaited, he knew this was only the beginning. One human, one queen, one choice, and the galaxy would never be the same.